Hey, welcome to Unstable Topics, a fast-paced, jam-packed, unhinged bestie podcast filled with facts, reacts, and made-up games in between.
We're your hosts, Sarah
and Maggie.
And we're excited for you to join our best friend hangout, where we surprise one another with things we find interesting or hilarious just to see how the other will react.
Our friendship might be totally stable, but you never know what your bestie might throw your way to knock you off your game.
So come shake things up, learn something new, and laugh along with us. This is Unstable Topics.
"91 Donkey Lane is a magical apartment complex that contains immense power but lacks intelligent inhabitants."
What is happening?
I'm getting texts.
Why are we getting a lot of texts?
People found out what we did.
Oh, dividing Mike Myers into an infinite amount of tiny Mike Myers?
Listen to 91 Donkey Lane for free on Spotify or your favorite podcasting app. More at 91donkeylane.com. See you there, you donkeys.
Hey, welcome to Unstable Topics, a fast-paced, jam-packed, unhinged bestie podcast filled with facts, reacts, and made-up games in between.
We're your hosts, Sarah
and Maggie.
And we're excited for you to join our best friend hangout, where we surprise one another with things we find interesting or hilarious just to see how the other will react.
Our friendship might be totally stable, but you never know what your bestie might throw your way to knock you off your game.
So come shake things up, learn something new, and laugh along with us. This is Unstable Topics.
Movie Night, we're back as we near the end of Foreign Film February. Kyle brings us the oldest anniversary we've discussed so far. It's 65 years ago. Yeah. With Eyes Without a Face, a French film from 1960. I have seen this movie. I think this was the third or fourth time I've seen this movie. Scott and Kyle, first watch, second watch. Okay,
first for me.
Scott.
It's probably
great,
third or fourth for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm glad you.
This
I'm
is
glad
fantastic.
you dug it.
Such a great movie.
Yeah, it felt like a good way to go out for our February, which I'm so glad we did this, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, this was. I feel so
this
cultured.
Was fun. You feel very cultured. No, I've had this DVD for a long time. I actually first saw it. I took what did you take, Scott? Before I go into what I took.
I'm feeling very cultured, so I just have some French red wine in a very fancy goblet.
Look at that.
That's incredible. I have not been feeling well, so I had to take a quick break, so I don't have anything to drink, but I was hoping that Carly we had a French Chardonnay a couple days ago that I was hoping that there was just a little bit left in the bottle. There was not. So was
the bottle empty
that's
on
Eyes Without
the...
a Face. I'm a Kyle without a drink. So
man.
no, that was fine.
I give it a 3.
Thank you.
I mean, the scale's out of 100.
Out of 5?
Fuck.
But no,
so
I
Go
mean,
ahead,
this is one that has been in, like, you know, I'm a big fan of buying those, like, books of horror movies that you should watch.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, this is, like, constantly in, like, the 100 best or most important horror films that, like, every horror fan needs to see. And, like, I think a big part of that, and you're going to walk us through the plot, but, like, it's a black and white French film, so it looks like it's 1960, but the violence and the things that they show in the movie feel much more recent.
Very
than
impressive.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they absolutely do. There's something about the way that it's shot and framed and everything just has this severity to it that is also, it feels like a timeless severity in some ways, which is a weird thing to say, but you're right.
I could not believe that like I mean, I knew the concept, right? But I could not believe that they literally like cut in 1965 they cut off a woman's face.
And you're there for like a 5-minute surgery.
That's what I'm trying to say is like I was very impressed with the fact that it did not cut away.
Yeah, like not to steal someone's double feature here, but 37 years later they did Face Off and barely showed something as gnarly as this. You know what I mean?
And that's so funny. I almost picked Face Off as my double feature, but I was like, no, that's way too on the nose.
Yeah.
Or any other part of the face.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. No, there's a French Extremity starts here.
Yes,
it really does. That was one of the things I thought. Like, this is the beginning of what became that genre that I typically don't like, but I like this toned down 60s version of French Extreme.
The first time I saw this, I was a teenager, but there was a continuing adult education class that was teaching about classic horror films, and I was really intrigued and wanted to know more, and so I signed up for this adult class, and that showed Frankenstein, it showed this, it showed Mad Love, it showed I think it paired this and Twilight. Hopefully this isn't somebody else's double feature. Paired this and Twilight Zone's Eye of the Beholder, which I thought was really interesting too.
For sure.
That's a lot of sense.
And I mean, this is the one that
basically
really
the
stuck with me.
same year. I think they came out either the same year or like a year apart from each other.
You know, and it's just it's incredible. I'm so glad we got to do this for each other and for the show. And
Kyle, I'm about to hand the reins over to you to do the plot description, but Scott, as the official music guy of the show, how much does this opening theme song slap before we even start the plot lines? It's so
amazing.
good.
It's one of those ones that I forget, and then as soon as it comes back on, it's just so vibrant and so like...
It's like an evil carousel sound the whole time. It's great.
Yeah, really, really good. So, Eyes Without a Face, 1960. We open the film with a woman dumping a corpse in a river, which is identified as Christiane. I'm bad at names, particularly French names, but Christiane, which is the daughter of famed Dr. Genessier. Turns out that was a lie. That Christiane is actually alive and living at home, and the dumped body was the corpse of a botch job from who I will continue to call the Good Doctor, as he tries to graft a face for his daughter. Christiane wears a porcelain-esque mask, which, as Matt, you said, those books that talk about this film, they're always there's one or two shots that they always show of this mask. And it's
haunting. It's a haunting mask. It's one of those dead masks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
But seeing the very alive eyes behind it makes it that much freakier to look at.
Yeah, it's an incredible mask.
That the actor who plays the girl without a face has the longest neck. It's amazing. I mean, it's a beautiful neck, but it's also just preternaturally long. So it really fits.
She's gorgeous.
Yes.
When they finally show her with what is supposed to be the appropriate face on, you're like, hot damn, she is a good-looking girl. But I looked into it, and half of the actresses in this movie just died in the last 5 years.
Wow.
They, the girl that they kidnap at the end of the movie died in 2023.
Oh wow! Wow. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's coming up on that time, but it's weird that they're all in a pretty similar range.
Yeah.
But yes, no, she's beautiful, and it's actually it's that mask that allows us to believe that she will have she has that underneath. That mask that she's wearing is basically the face of this middle portion where she well, we'll get there. But anyway, Christiane wears this mask and she parades around her lonely living quarters, only finding love and companionship with like these 20 plus dogs that are in cages, any other animals in the house, and Luis, who is the doctor's I kept wanting to say sous chef because she's not a nurse per se, but she is like the doctor's like right-hand lady, right? Who was the person who dumped the corpse at the beginning of the film. Very beginning. So we know she's in cahoots. She's protecting both Christiane and the doctor, but that can only happen for so long. Also, we find out that Christiane has somebody who she's trying to reach on the other side of these walls that she's kept in, named Jacques. Jacques. Classic French name. Luis finds another potential candidate, Edna, for this face transplant, and she kidnaps Edna. And this is where we really get to see like what the scheme is, you know, and who knows how many people before the previous corpse, who knows how many people would have happened after Edna, but we see this gnarly face transplant surgery happen. It's pretty gross. Like for like 5 minutes, we're in this basement operating room, covered in, like surrounded by brick, and the architecture's gnarly, and the face transplant seems to happen without any issue. And now everybody's healing in seclusion in this house. Edna's face is bandaged, and she looks gnarly, like she's been through it. And she knows she's been through it because she wakes up in this seclusion, all bandaged. We think this one will work because Luisa, we find out, has previously had a face transplant and it was successful. Or some sort of transplant and it was successful. That's why she's here. She owes her life and her face to the doctor. So this is going to be the one that works. Yeah. Edna's face is gone. Christiane has Edna's face, and we'll figure out what to do with Edna eventually. I guess. I don't know. that does not happen because Edna escapes. She does not make it very far. She falls to her death from a window, which is also kind of gnarly. Like, we don't see the fall, but this shot of her looking down from the window and just that little trickle of blood from her head and like the fact that she's run through, it's quite frightening. So another corpse has to be rolled up in a rug and thrown into the river. That's just what we're going to do here. But things are not coming along as nicely as we thought. We find Christiane completely beautiful at this dinner scene. You know, she's ready to go back out into the world, reconnect with Jacques. The doctor's not quite sure how that's going to happen here. So he's like, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And good thing that they don't try, because Christiane's face does not heal. We have this beautiful...
I want to talk about this for a second, because
this break in the narrative to go through what has happened after this face transplant is a gorgeous way of telling it.
So,
go right ahead, Matt.
So the thing that it made me think of is you always hear, I'm a big Wes Anderson nerd, and you always hear how much Wes Anderson loves 60s French cinema and how much he pulls from that. And the idea of like showing the passage of time through a slideshow with a character off camera narrating is like one of those tricks that I know I've seen in like the Royal Tenenbaums or Life Aquatic. Like, it's definitely one of the moves that Wes Anderson has definitely pulled from this 60s French cinema movement. And it works so well, and it's such a good way to do a cheap effect, right? Like, in the 60s, they weren't going to be able to do someone's face kind of deteriorating off. But to do these slideshows of like, here's what she looked like on the 5th day. Here's what she looked like by day 12 when we had to accept that this was not going to actually work. Like, and it's gross. Like, you see, I think you also see Christine's face go from joy to sadness throughout the days in that photo. It's really, I mean, it's incredibly effective because you're right. You see it as sort of like a quirky, cheeky thing here in like Wes Anderson's. You see it as like very kind of literal here. And even if you go into something like, you know, in Child's Play, when, you know, it's not a still photo passage of time, but we see a face change through time, we know like what is, you know, what is happening to that person and logistically, this breaks from the reality of the movie a little bit, because like realistically, who is he doing this presentation for? Right. Like, he's doing like super illegal experiments in the basement, but because he's a doctor, presenting it the way that he would present a case to like a board is like a really unique way to get around kind of quickly moving the plot, because this movie's a cool 90.
Yeah.
And it moves.
The pacing's really good.
The pace is really excellent on it, and I mean, you're right, because that second scene after that first corpse dump is him giving a doctor talk. He's giving a speech, so it like matches really nicely. It is a creative break, but doesn't like totally take us out of the narrative, which it moves it right along. And I forgot to say before that Edna, after her kidnapping, does awake on the operating table and sees Christian without her mask, which is the first time that we see it. And Edna doesn't know what the fuck's going on, and that's the first time we see her without her mask. And it's frightening and gnarly, but it's also kind of graceful and sleek. It's not a jump scare by any means. It's pretty interesting. But anyway, Edna's gone. Christian's face is not working out, and she is just in despair. She calls Jacques again. So earlier in the film, she called Jacques and didn't say anything on the phone. Now she calls Jacques again, whispers his name. And we find out that Jacques is actually like a police officer who is helping to who will help to investigate this now serial killer, as we feel, who is dumping corpses of women with beautiful blue eyes. Not only is that happening, but at the moment that they discuss this, he has picked up a woman for shoplifting, gets her address, and then they utilize her as bait to try to catch this serial killer later on, which is crazy to me. But they're French. It's 1960. ACAB, whatever. So she
always in forever is what we're learning.
Yes. So Christian's losing it. This is not working. She has no faith in her father being able to accomplish this, and she begs Luis to kill her like one of his dogs. She does not. They're going to keep doing this until it works. She is just a guinea pig, unfortunately, and this has been told throughout the whole film because her father is incredibly cold to her. Luis is barely any warmer, but it is at least there. Yeah. And so we move on to this sort of police attempt to catch this serial killer, which, we're being told two different narratives. We are now at this final pinnacle of what's going to happen. The bait lady gets admitted to the hospital, gets released from the hospital, and instead of going about her merry way, Luis picks her up and takes her and kidnaps her. The police try to get to the hospital to figure out what has happened. They have just missed her. They all have alibis. She's gone. She's gone, and we don't know what to do. Now we're back at the doctor's underground hospital, underground operating room.
Can't believe you didn't say there.
The woman who was bait, whose name I did not get, but we're going to call her bait.
Something with a T, like Trisha or something.
What's a French name we haven't used?
I'll go look it up.
Mademoiselle. I'm just going to say Mademoiselle. Mademoiselle is awakes here. She is drawn on. She's got the sutures attached to the paper. Her face is about ready to be cut off, but Christian is there. She is there, and she stabs Luis in the neck.
And boy, do we linger on the shot of Luis.
And
also,
it's
looked
right
it up.
in the scar.
It was staring right at us, Kyle. Of course, the French name we were forgetting. Paulette.
Paulette.
Paulette. I knew the second we'd met, I'd forget your name. But so then Christian, stabs Luis. She's like, "How could you?" And we're like, "How could you not?"
Yeah.
Paulette is set free by Christian. Christian also releases all the dogs, who then attack the doctor.
And that's a pretty sick scene too, because
it's a great scene.
There are a lot of dogs, and I would be shocked if the guy who is getting bitten by those dogs didn't take at least one or two nips.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. There's a lot of dogs, and they were on him, and I don't know if the French did a lot of safety precautions during anybody did any safety precautions during the 60s. I think you just let the dog go then you just pray.
They're like, oh,
pray,
you got padding, you're
okay.
fine. Not on your hands though, you know?
Yeah, right. And this is great too because we have these beautiful moments of her with the animals and with the dogs, and there's this love, but they're also held captive. So, she just lets the whole thing loose, including herself. She frees herself like a bird from a cage and walks out into France. And that is the gorgeous Eyes Without a Face.
The final shot, it's a pretty iconic shot in like art and film history circles of her with this mask carrying a dove in her hand. That's like not for nothing, not like a sleeping dove. This thing is like spreading its wings, like ready to fly at any second. It's such a good movie. It's such a good movie. It's such a pretty movie. It's like we said already, it's a well-paced movie.
And the moments of horror are totally there.
They're chilling.
I was like,
they're legitimately chilling scenes.
Yeah. No doubt. So I loved it. I was happy. I don't know the last time I had visited this movie. So I'm glad we got into it. And it just feels, something like this feels great for the times that we're going through now, to be able to watch some of this thing that is sort of personal but reflective of a larger thing, and then just to find this freedom put on by ourselves, which is nice. So you can draw some conclusions there, I suppose.
91 Donkey Lane is a magical apartment complex that contains immense power but lacks intelligent inhabitants.
What is happening?
I'm getting texts.
Why are we getting a lot of texts?
People found out what we did.
Oh, dividing Mike Myers into an infinite amount of tiny Mike Myers?
Listen to 91 Donkey Lane for free on Spotify or your favorite podcasting app. More at 91donkeylane.com. See you there, you donkeys.
Hey, it's Jonathan London of the Geekscape podcast, and I want to tell you all about the first official Geekscape comic book, Paul London, Hero of the Prophecy. This is equal parts sci-fi fantasy, comedic adventure, and pro wrestling entertainment told in a nostalgic style. If you're a fan of 80s films like Conan the Barbarian, Krull, Willow, the Beastmaster, and comedic mistaken identity movies like The Army of Darkness, Three Amigos, and Galaxy Quest, you're gonna love Paul London, Hero of the Prophecy. That's right, I wrote it about my younger brother Paul London, former WWE Cruiserweight and Tag Team Champion. But in this story, he's now washed up, down on his luck, and then magically transported across the universe to a distant planet of sword and sorcery. Once there, he's mistaken to be the hero of the prophecy, destined to free an entire kingdom from the evil sorcerer Ramzar. This is 26 pages of full-color pro wrestling fantasy comic book adventure. Podcast listeners, this is a comic for you. Go to herooftheprophecy.com to learn more. Paul London, Hero of the Prophecy.
Well, Kyle, if you wanted to draw even more conclusions by making your friends watch a second movie after this one, what would you have them watch?
So it is on the nose again. It's hard to not do the face stuff here, but I was gonna go The Skin I Live In with Banderas.
Bro,
and,
good choice. 'Cause I was gonna pick that, but can you imagine what that night would be like? It would be so
it
hard.
is kind of watching a loose remake in some ways, but God, it's just quite the night. I know it's not the most fun night, but it is. Whew, it's happening. So that's what I would do.
How about you, Scott? Because there's no world where you're taking mine.
I mean, I'm going to go with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Wow. Yes. Amazing.
Love it. Love to hear it.
That's perfect.
How is that not your pick, Matt?
Because I went very on the nose with another movie that ends without a face. I went with the iconic 1958 killer brain movie Fiend Without a Face.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I wasn't gonna get to that one.
Featuring these
Are those
guys?
Are those killer
alien
brains? Fiend Without a Face. I gotta
Wow.
look that shit up. That looks awesome.
That's great.
And speaking of things that are pretty damn good, hey, have you checked out our Patreon? Patreon.com/HMN podcast. You know what also involves HMN podcast? Why, our website, hmnpodcast.com, as well as if you search us on TeePublic at HMN podcast, where you can get some
You can get a
pretty
Rada's
cool
workout
shirts.
shirt. You can get our best-selling Cutie Patootie shirt. You can get literally them printed on almost anything you can imagine. If you have a baby, you can
you
make
can get a onesie.
baby onesie that says Cutie
You can
Patootie.
send in
People
the
have
baby.
done that.
Yes. And on our socials, HMN podcast on everything. And hey, you know what? Social media is a hellscape right now, and who knows how much longer we'll have it. So if you want to stay in the know, you should probably email us as well at hmnpodcast@gmail.com to be added to our monthly newsletter. And that is basically the whole deal. So going back to you, Kyle, what is something that you watched, listened to, read, etc., that you want to celebrate or give a fair warning to avoid?
Yeah, no. I this is a celebration. I watched Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul.
So fun. So good.
dude.
Wait.
It's
What is it? Wallace and Gromit, what?
Vengeance Most Foul.
It's about an evil chick.
FOWL.
Yeah, it just
It's the
came
new
out.
one,
It's
yeah.
nominated
Yeah.
for the Oscar for Best Animated Film this year.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Is
on
it
Netflix.
animated or is it stop motion?
Well, they put it all in that pile.
But it's a stop motion like old
A
school
stop
Wallace and
motion,
Gromit?
yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. And
Sick.
so I've not watched a ton of stuff for like the Aardman, right? I've not done a ton of Aardman stuff. It's just never. It's not that it wasn't my bag. Actually, it probably would completely be my bag. It's just not something I ventured into. And Carly and I have just between our Disney stuff and we have not, still celebrating the life and legacy of David Lynch in some ways, which you can. Sometimes with the world and the work that we do, it is not easy to just like sit and binge Lynch. So we don't do that. We just sprinkle that in when it makes sense to us. But now with the Oscars right around the corner, just trying to catch some of these things. And, I'm going to reserve probably a lot of what I say about the other films. I think I've talked a little bit about some of them here already. We've talked The Substance already. Like stuff like that is out there. But Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul is just so fun. It's so fun. I think it's on Netflix.
Yeah, it is.
If you have Netflix, it is worth watching. It's cheeky. It's cute. It's action-packed. There's some great horror moments, like true horror elements, which, from what I understand, is kind of an Aardman thing. Like especially Wallace and Gromit, they have a little bit of a horror element to a lot of their stories, or at least the feature stuff. And this was just a great time. It's all about Wallace, who has invented a gnome that will basically do like a total efficiency gnome. And it is a bummer for Gromit, who likes to garden his own way and not try to focus on efficiency, but rather the peacefulness of being able to do something yourself. And then that technology turns against them, and it's just a fucking blast. It's really fun.
The best animated feature category, I feel like, is one of the more stacked categories this year at the Oscars, because it's like you've got that Wallace and Gromit movie, you've got The Wild Robot, which was fantastic. I watched that recently to get caught up.
That's next.
Moana 2 is apparently fine. Inside Out 2 was really, really good. And I really want to see this movie Flow, that I think is like the front runner.
People love Flow.
Yeah, Scott, I don't know if you know anything about Flow.
I have no idea.
It's a foreign animated feature that is fully dialogue free. And it's basically just these animals. I think the main character is a cat, but it's like a town is flooding and it's all of these animals working together to survive the flood in like a completely dialogue free but like musical ambient kind of way. Like you're just like,
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, like I mean it crushed at the Golden Globes, and it feels like it's the front runner this year for the Oscar too. But I don't think it's streaming anywhere just yet. So I've kind of been like waiting for that to be an option. I'll go next because Flow, like I said, won the Golden Globe, and I watched something just before the Golden Globes last month that had kind of swept all the categories it was nominated for. Was Baby Reindeer, which is a 6-part miniseries on Netflix that is just wild, like a real wild, heavy ride It's based on a true story about a stand-up comic who was working as a bartender and was being stalked by one of the ladies that came into the bar on a regular basis. But he was like down on his luck, so he's like, oh, let me just like he playfully feeds into the flirting and then doesn't realize what he's unleashed. But what makes it so interesting is that it's based on a true story by the guy who wrote, directed, and starred as himself in it. And it's kind of like an experiment of him reliving this tragedy, but also talking about like men being sexually abused as well. It's a lot about him finding his bisexuality in certain elements. Like it's juggling a ton of like heavy topics in a bite-sized way. It's like I said, it's 6 or 8 episodes, all of them like 20 to 24 minutes long. Right. So like Barb and I knocked it out in a single sitting because at the end of every episode, we're just like, well, fuck, we need to know what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Next. But I mean, it is, there are like moments that are very difficult to watch. And there's a story of his past, and there's also some controversy. It's very I will say this, the woman who it is based on, he obviously changed the names and details, but then the woman it was based on then went to the news and said that the story was false. But like when she was pointing out the things that were false, she would say things like, in the show it says that I had stalked people before and he was the first person I stalked. And it's like you are not like making a good
psychopath.
For, like,
Jesus.
Like it was like one of those things where I'm like, you're not really clearing the record for anything.
Well, I mean, she is in a way, but maybe not the way that she wants.
Especially when it's like, hey, we actively changed this person's name to protect them, and then that person's just like, how the hell you will?
Wait. Yeah, I'm gonna fuck up my own life.
It's just very, very strange. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure most of the people who listen to the show have already listened to it because it was kind of like what Squid Game was like 2 years ago, where just suddenly everybody on the internet was like, have you seen Baby Reindeer? I liked it. That's all I'm trying to say. Scott, wrap us up. I'm rambling.
Damn, because I am a person on the internet, and I have no idea. I had no idea that Baby Reindeer came out. I don't know if it really is my cup of tea, but I would like to be in the know.
I'm also very much in that movie and TV side of the internet more than anything.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, and I don't really follow or do a whole lot with the TV side of the internet because it's just too much.
Too much.
But that said, I wanted to draw attention to a movie that I appreciated. I don't know if I liked the watch, but it does dovetail with Eyes Without a Face, because it is another French film. I believe it came out last year, maybe 2021. I can't remember exactly, but it's recently dropped on Shudder. It's called The Vordelok.
Okay.
It is a retelling of, or I guess that there was a movie about the Vordelok, which is kind of like a European folk vampire, like a folk-esque vampire. So they don't drink blood, and they're not like a gothic vampire. They're a folk vampire. So I mean, like, they kind of drink blood. They kind of have mind control, but the rules are slightly different. But it has an amazing score. It's beautifully shot. The pacing is rough for me. It plotted a lot. But the visuals are just insane, and it's like all harpsichord music, and it's set in like 1700s in Europe. It's the whole conceit of it is that there's this French emissary to the King of France, and he's in Bulgaria, maybe he's somewhere else in Europe, and he's lost, and he stays at these people's house, and they're fighting the Turks, and the master of the house, the father, left a note saying, I'm going to go fight the Turks. He's this old man. He's like, I'm going to go fight the Turks. If I'm not back in 6 days, that means that I have either died fighting the Turks or am lost. If I come back after 6 days, do not let me in because I have become a Vordelok. And at 6 p.m. on the 6th day, if I am not home. And so they find him, they sit down to have dinner outside waiting for him. And literally at 6 o'clock, they see his body at the edge of their clearing, and they go and they bring him back. And here's the rub. Here's the thing about the movie that really is so charming. There is no person that plays the Vordelok. It's a puppet. It's a wooden puppet. And it's so fun. It's like such an interesting decision that this movie would be, I mean, like, it is definitely more of a meditation on the concept of, you know, like broken family structures and trust in wartime and all these things. It's very French, and it's honestly a good movie. Like, it's a really good movie. I just don't think I could watch it a second time because of the pacing. But goddamn, making the choice to have a wooden puppet as the antagonist of the film is such. It's choice. It's like such a choice, and I think that it shows a very creative spirit, and I really that's why I wanted to mention it here, because I think that it will find its audience, and I would just like to signal boost, like, if you like really weird stuff like that, I think you'd probably get a kick out of it too. So it's the Vordelok, and it's on Shudder.
It was part of Chattanooga last year.
Did you watch it?
The 2023. No, I was one of the. It was one of the I missed.
Okay.
And then it was and then it wasn't available for a while. You know.
Yeah, I highly recommend you giving it a shot on Shudder.
I love the look of the puppet. I just looked it up because I heard puppet. I had to look.
Well, and that's the funny
it's
thing.
It's nothing like Mort from or Morty from The Fear.
No, nothing like that. No, it's that's what's so funny about it is that, like, so I saw it drop on Shudder, and I was like, I read the synopsis. I didn't watch a trailer, nothing, and I was like, this sounds kind of interesting. And I looked at the first review, and I actually grazed the first couple of reviews and just looked at the skull rating, and like they're all 5 skulls, and I'm like, holy shit, this is a banger. And I scanned the first review, and it said something about the puppet, and I was like, oh,
the puppet,
done. Like, I'm so done. I'm so in, because I was like, even if I don't like it, I gotta report back to you guys, because it's definitely an overlap with our interests. So it's a really good art horror film. Like, if you like art in your genre films, like, I think that you will appreciate it. You may not love a rewatch of it because, like I said, the pacing's just not for me, but and if you can, I mean, it's in French, so I watched it with subtitles. If you can't handle subtitles, then you probably don't like art horror anyway. But yeah, like it's a movie to chew on, if I may say so.
Love that. Perfect. And also perfect, whatever we're talking about next week. But Kyle, thank you for a perfect end to Foreign Film February with Eyes Without a Face, and we'll be back next week with more Horror Movie Night.
Hey, welcome to Unstable Topics, a fast-paced, jam-packed, unhinged bestie podcast filled with facts, reacts, and made-up games in between.
We're your hosts, Sarah
and Maggie.
And we're excited for you to join our best friend hangout, where we surprise one another with things we find interesting or hilarious just to see how the other will react.
Our friendship might be totally stable, but you never know what your bestie might throw your way to knock you off your game.
So come shake things up, learn something new, and laugh along with us. This is Unstable Topics.
"91 Donkey Lane is a magical apartment complex that contains immense power but lacks intelligent inhabitants.
What is happening?
I'm getting texts.
Why are we getting a lot of texts?
People found out what we did.
Oh, dividing Mike Myers into an infinite amount of tiny Mike Myers?
Listen to 91 Donkey Lane for free on Spotify or your favorite podcasting app. More at 91donkeylane.com. See you there, you donkeys.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.